popular ideology passed, especially in the self-help community and spiritual community. The idea that all comes from within, so you must only get your needs met through yourself. This misunderstood conception of unity and being able to receive all through yourself inherently is neither false nor true, but it's because of our perceptions on these ideas which will then change our entire perspective, intention, and acknowledgement on this. How one approaches the concept. Many of those who promote it and hear it have this idea that if the truth of our being is unified, then we should be able to receive everything from ourselves, right? Whether it's from the universal scientific quantum mechanic side of it, the spiritual source, or the religious God, or whatever name we want to label it, this greater being. We then take this idea of this greater unified being and allow ourselves to apply that as our source of everything, which is very helpful when rooted in healthy understanding, one holding dichotomy to objectively observe that we may very well be one in source, abundantly provided for, though we also are experiencing a time-space reality in which we are separated consciousness. We're separated in our conscious identity to all other. We don't identify as everything else. To hold the dichotomy of being something greater, that unified self, channeling and tunneling into these singularities of limitation into its separated idea of what life is. To be unified and absolutely abundantly whole, we have to acknowledge the act of being separate. But these separations, we don't even know what others are thinking. We don't even know what our own selves are thinking, let alone our surroundings, our bodies. So many of us only choose to either see the separated side of Source or the unified self of Source. And in this polarity, we lack the integration of these two sides which have yet to be unified. Let me come clear and straight off the bat, though, that the ideas that this unified and abundant and self-creating and fulfilling world is not the problem we are seeing in this ideology. It is the fact that we are forgetting to include all other where other is present, and which is very much around us, which is very much physically present. All of this physicality acts as a physical manifestation of Source, the primordial energy, that omni-being. We're trying to take this singularity we call ourselves out of the whole and say that it's all that's present, that the ones around us also aren't present, important, whole, and a part of that whole that you claim to be a part of. If you were unified in the most loving and inclusive way, you would have no problem including all other. You see the inherent fall in this ideology when you try and remove other, right? Let me give you some clear examples on the unhealthy downfalls of what I mean to make sure we understand each other and we're on the same page. So, first off, not using people, our surroundings, and environments as the tools that they are, the resources everyone provides as the now. As I should say, what everyone can provide is now seen as insignificant to what you, your own singularity, can provide for yourself. You may refuse help from others because you don't think it would be of real help, rather seeing it as a hindrance, not allowing you to grow in not just a healthy way, but in any way. Because if it's not coming from you, it means you're incompetent in some way. Maybe your idea that your higher being is seeing it as though you are unable to do anything. And kind of with that last example, shame and anxiety can also arise in the unhealthy standpoint when we start to believe that we are spiritually not evolved enough because we can't break free from our humanness. We can't break free from this physical world. The idea that our humanness is a sin, a shadow, something needing to be fixed rather than integrated into the whole. Here, we see ourselves as not being evolved or competent enough for what our idea of source's expectations are. We're projecting here. You can also see another theme. Would you like to guess what it is? The theme is that we have an extreme over-reliance on the singularity that we would call ourselves. Our physicality manifested in individualization. The inherent separated intention based in this neutral ideology. This ideology can be used in either an empowering or disempowering way. Our own sovereignty is one option which we can place in this ideology of this universe and being. We can gain sovereignty from this idea. But we didn't come here to get rid of that inherent individual identities. We came to bring them into the whole. One sees all is neutral, and suddenly all actions now come from a chosen place. We're not here to get rid of the actions. So, just like how food, sex, sleep are not bad, they are all necessary for survival. But when one acts out of desperation, a place of separation, they now make actions which are detrimental to themselves using those actions. They would eat things that they wouldn't eat if full and satisfied. They would eat things which aren't good for them, maybe even poisonous, just to fill their tummy. To have sex with anyone just because they want to feel something. They need to fill a void, whether it's mentally, physically, or emotionally lack that they're trying to fill. If one weren't desperate, lacking, and feeling separation, one would 100% be able to use, let's say, sex as a healthy expression, where they could genuinely express and choose genuine compatibility in their partners, or harnessing it and using that sexual energy for something like their creative passions or whatever they're passionate about. And the same to sleep, where sleep can really be an escape for some people when they're in that detrimental space. But it can also be one which we can use as an intended tool to rest and rebuild and to explore the depths of our psyche. Every action is neutral until we come and mingle and co-create with it. We choose how we interact with the world. And funnily enough, our intentions and our actions determine how that action first off will be chosen, but most importantly, how it will play out in the effects, the butterfly effect, which come after, the rippling of the waves. Now, all these silly examples can kind of seem irrelevant, right, to the topic. But if you look closely, we're observing a polarity in our actions, a polarity of separation or lack, of separation and lack, or unity and abundance. This idea that our actions are the inherent problem or downfall of our spiritual growth and sovereignty is not at face value complete. Not until you see that actions can be done from either place of separation or unity, but it can be just in your intention. Furthermore, to produce those unified and abundant actions through our physical experience is possible. The fact that we can choose these effects, even more than it being a possibility, it's a choice that we can choose to experience. This life is not about getting rid of the tools that we call emotions, thinking, connection, relationships, even attachments. To learn them all in their origins and their objective neutral role that they are serving allows for you to open up to yourself and use them in the way that you would like to use them as the tools that they are. Positive or negative, unified or separated, lack and degenerative, or abundant and healthy growth. We have a choice of how we want to use them. And one last thing before we get into the logistics of healthy incorporation of the I get everything I need through this individuated self, I want to first look at a familiar story which we may have heard before. The short story goes as follows. A man stranded out in the ocean. He pleads to God for help, right? And boats come in, but every single one who try and offer their help, the man politely declines and sends away. And after multiple times of this, the man loses faith and perishes. They go on to say that he reaches heaven, and when he confronts God asking why he didn't receive his help, why God didn't come down and, help him, all God said was, I sent you multiple boats. But in that story, the man kept denying those boats, saying, God will come for me and help me. This short story is a perfect reminder of how God or Source will use our physical world to provide for our physical beings. We are not just spiritual, we are crystallized, manifested beings which incarnated physically. Just because God is not what we know of in this physical world does not mean it is not working through us, is us, and is everything which we perceive. So, first of all, to apply the logistics then, we must first recognize and observe once again the dichotomy, the individualization of our own unified energy, which is. Now, realize when they say you get everything through yourself, this implies two things. One, you are already connected to the energies that you seek. The freedom, the peace, the connection, the love, the opportunities, all of that. Two, you as in the individuated you, must take actions to ensure your own fulfillment to your own desires. This means you need to identify what you want first and go after it. The lack of desperation in this state is because you are unified. It is not a question of if you will be provided for, it is how you will be provided for, which is determined based on what is chosen in your actions and your intention in your actions. This is so important, so I want to go over this one more time. You must be taking actions to ensure that you are getting what you want. If you want connection, lying to yourself that your own existence of this singularity is enough is cruel. It is abusive. It's abusive to suppress yourself. Realistically, these are processes which have been normalized within society, from our parental homes and roots, to suppress, but this doesn't mean that they need to continue. More than that, you can't expect to get connection if you don't know how to create healthy intimacy with yourself and inherently other. You can't expect yourself to go after anything if you don't have intimacy with yourself to know what you want. So me telling you the basic action of simply inspired action to meet the people, places, and things that are in your interest and compatible to you is not entirely helpful. not in this stage if you don't already know how. This information of taking the choices to what you want to experience is simple in idea, and only simple when one has practiced this habitual practice for some time, where it's their normal, it's their muscle memory to take those actions and have the thoughts which back up those actions with confidence, with trust in oneself. So, with you knowing how to take those actions by creating intimacy with yourself and learning yourself, I want to go on about this lecture on ways to release the resistance which have kept you from taking these actions in the first place. That is the fact that in the past, you haven't thought that you could realistically experience what you want to experience, because either you didn't experience what you needed or wanted, or you got it and it was taken away from you. And this is a very real trauma onto the psyche, and it goes onto the memory holder, which we call DNA. This means our emotional memories, which are held within our nervous system and all around our body, will begin tensing and restricting physical energy as it toxically repeats from that moment of traumatic stress over and over again, because it is unresolved within the nervous system. The brain legitimately believing at a subconscious level for it to still be experiencing the original prime trauma of whatever originally caused that pain over and over and over continuously until it is processed. Sometimes this was what was done onto us, but for so many of us, it was what was not done. What we lacked, the love, the emotional intimacy, the attention, the comfort, the care, the understanding. How does one even know what these things are if one never truly experienced them? This is where emotional trauma, holding beliefs in lack and separation, begin to hold us back from not only taking the actions that we need, but actually believing that those options don't even exist. That even if we went after it, it would come void. In this state, it will take us back. We need to go back to our prior 2 points of the essential parts of the healthy ideology of this topic. The first was the fact that we know to be completely whole, utterly unified and complete. But we can't falsely identify ourselves like this into this belief, lying to ourselves while we're still dealing with the very real pain which still occurs waiting to be processed. We can't lie to ourselves into something we don't believe. Without facing the pain, which acts as a restriction to the physical manifestation of our life force, to our own bodies, we then deteriorate and are unable to take physical actions to help our lowering of self because of our low and lack-filled state. To truly face the restriction, you must face the pain and limited beliefs which you still identify to not being able to be provided for. To the one within you still believing for it to be impossible, maybe feeling that inevitable doom, or that succumbing to your own state of isolated, self-seeking help, which, when you're only seeking through yourself for physical things, you come void every time. Why? Because not only do you believe to be separate from the primordial, the source, the God, but now you also believe to be separated from physicality. You believe to be isolated, separated, and outcasted by all else, by everyone else. Realistically, no one else was safe. That's why you turned inwards. It's not like this belief showed up out of nowhere. That first initiation was turning inwards. The second is realizing that the only reason you turned inwards was because you knew you wanted and deserved better, that you needed more. And now, your third, of choosing how can you go about now knowing what you want and confidently going after it. How can you go after it knowing it will be provided for? Because in those steps, you need to be able to know you will be provided for. If one individual can't, another will. And that's all you need to know. There is compatibility for every single thing, for everything, every single existence. Don't close yourself off to the limitless physical manifestations something can be made manifest of. Your connection may come in different shapes and sizes and species. Your freedom may come in more actions than you thought, maybe smaller actions rather than the big like traveling. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's all of them. You may now find security no longer comes from the things that you invest in. But because you invest, there is security made in the things that you invest in. Because you are smart enough to choose what to invest in. One which will be safe. One which will allow for both you and the other party to be the best you that you can be. And allowing for the other party to hold the same for you. So the trauma that kept us in fear of what we're meant to trust another, and we lost that trust. We turned to ourselves. But it was to honor ourselves, to find our individual experience. We swung that pendulum from being completely suppressed and denied to completely suppressing and denying the other. And now, in the objective realization, we have to stop the sway to come back into the middle for our pendulum to center. And here, in that center, we know objectively both need to be heard, to be valued, to be seen, loved, and honored, to be seen and connected for both you and other. I want us to work towards a healthy integration of both ideas, that we may very well be a unified being, but we also have chosen to become these small parts within that whole. That because we chose to be a singularity instead of a whole in consciousness, we now have to make the actions which will allow this singularity to become whole in its environment and surroundings. This means taking charge of your own life. This means taking your own wants and needs and honoring them. Allowing you to find where you fit. Allowing you to go where you belong. Readjusting and changing your choices to create people, places, and things which reflect a genuine authenticity, a genuine authentic compatibility even. By honoring yourself, by recognizing you do have things that are worthy to be met, needs, wants, and interests, you make the choices and honor the people who can do that for you, the places that can do that for you. And in that, you make the actions which allow you to invest and come together with other, which has always been you. You guys were always right when you said it was always you. Though, I'm sure you see now that it goes even deeper than you immediately begun to think. It has always been just you, and only you. So continue to learn thyself of this individual body, and in those you call other. In learning oneself, in all, you can continue to create this time around a creation which can be seen as a harmonious whole, instead of a body working against one another. In this body of universe, of source, let us work together to make the best us that we can be, to make the actions we know we need, trusting it indeed is all within us.